Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Transforming Yourself into a More Fee-for-Service Dentist with my good friend, Dr. Todd Fleischman. As we have people kind of streaming in here, I want to share a few things with you. I'll ask actually my friend Todd, which handpiece brand do you use at Center City Philly Dentist? What's your handpiece brand?
I love how I'm supposed to know the answer to this. That's the best part
No,
about
no,
it.
yours. Just one you use.
No, I understand. I'm still trying to make sure I know the answer to my own handpieces. I would say I use Cavos. I use Cavos.
Davo,
Yeah.
well, you are in luck because we
Ah,
are hosting a $2,000 shopping spree to Cavo, which I've been told you can get one amazing handpiece or two medium handpieces. If you're here, you just text handpiece to 215-543-6454. Even my friend Todd is eligible to win. So Cavo
sweet.
has graciously offered this amazing giveaway. So take advantage of that. I also want to share with everyone here because it's my webinar. I can embarrass Todd as much as I want. So Haley Pop, who may be popping in, but I know she'll watch the recording, came to Super Dentist Boost Camp. She is amazing. She's an associate dentist looking to do better. Love Super Dentist Boost Camp. Let's listen in. Let me share my sound here real quick first on what she had to say about Super Dentist Boost Camp and her experience. I will also put up a text code if you have not watched Todd's new patient exam CE for free. You can get that as well, but let's listen on Haley.
I'm Haley Pop. I am an associate dentist, 2 years out of dental school, and I had an opportunity to learn from Dr. Todd Fleischman this morning. The biggest thing I took away from it was that treatment planning, comprehensive treatment planning is not a one-size-fits-all approach, but you really can't make assumptions or jump to any conclusions about patients. The best way to understand what they want and how to give them the best care possible is to talk to them, find out what they're looking for, and be honest and transparent with them about what you can give them, and that will lead to the most success with patient care.
So Todd, how's that make you feel to hear? And tell us a little bit about Super Dentist Boost Camp. You've spoken at almost every one. What do you get out of it
Yeah.
as a speaker? Why should dentists pay attention, as you say, and come to Super Dentist Boost Camp in 2025?
Well, first of all, Haley's amazing, and I feel like I couldn't have said it better myself. So I'm really, it's a very gracious answer from her. So I'm super psyched that was her takeaway because I think it's pretty extraordinary. I mean, listen, if you want to surround yourself with like-minded individuals, if you want to be around a community that's supportive, if you want to learn from experienced clinicians at any stage of their careers, whether they're experienced but younger, experienced but older, been through transitions, done all sorts of things. New Dentist Boost Camp is a great introduction to sort of overall exposure of the dental world, right? It's like an easy entrance for people to expose themselves to relationship-based CE, which is what you and I, try and tout ourselves
I
as
love that.
doing here. We're trying to build connections with people because, what we do by ourselves can be very challenging.
Totally. And I will violate Zoom HIPAA for that. We may get Kansas City's chief fan, Alex Clark, who's here tonight, Todd. We had a pre-pandemic dinner at Alvez. He has not been here since the pandemic, but he has put his deposit down for Super Dentist Boost. So
He's the
hopefully that will
man.
make it official.
Very
So he's watching.
supportive. I always appreciate Alex, of course.
So we're doing your first in-person workshop for 2 days. 4 of the 6
Yeah.
spots are filled. Just kind of highlight to the audience what this is going to be about, what they're going to learn, why you've decided to do this immersive experience into what you do with new patients, how you run your fee-for-service practice, a topping of photography. Tell us about that.
I'm just trying to help people figure out how to refine the patient experience in their practice. I hear from students and young dentists all the time, how do you do it? Which courses should I take? What kind of exposure should I get? And at the end of the day, I've done a lot of it. And so, I'm here to try and just help people fast forward things a little bit. I'm not trying to take shortcuts. That's not the answer, right? Shortcuts are never the answer. But if we can fast forward through some of the fogginess of some of the continuing education that we get and just hear a lot of very practical items in a short period of time with a very personal hands-on component, that was sort of my vision for it, right? Small group learning, very interactive, the need to fill out an application because I want people who come to be willing to work with each other. It's very important to to train on the new patient experience, which is really the new patient exam and the workflow that's in regards to it, to train on digital photography 101 and take pictures like I do. I'm not talking about artistic things or super extraordinary stuff, but if you follow, the work that we do on social media out of my practice, if you've seen the work that I've done with you on Nachos, we're talking about like consistent, high level, pointed, paid attention to general dentistry, right? I'm not looking to reinvent wheels, but I can help people sort of boost, just like title that we came up with, their journey toward trying to give patients a different type of experience, trying to give them more satisfaction out of the type of dentistry they're practicing. And what I found after 20 years of doing it on my end is that sometimes the more satisfying stuff takes more effort. You need to do more groundwork for it. You have to put more time in, and I can help young dentists, old dentists, dentists who just want to feel different coming out of their practice and the patient experience, to have this course. And I think there's a lot to offer here. I expect it to be packed full of information over 2 days. Plus, we're going to eat and drink in Philadelphia together. I mean, I'm fortunate that I work and live in the city, 5 minutes, everything's within 5 minutes from where my whole life is. And so I'm well connected, and I expect us to have a really positive experience together. And, the point of this is like when I've gone to Kois, when I've gone to Spear, and I've met these incredible like-minded dentists, now you're connected, right? Now you have connections throughout the country. Now you feel like you're a part of a group that understands each other. You start to speak the same. You start to look at cases the same. And having access to the experience that we have, I think is really valuable, to be quite honest with you. So we're looking forward to giving it a shot. I'm very candid with everyone. Everyone knows how honest I am. It's the first time we're doing it, but I think there's a ton of value coming their way for sure.
Awesome. And Haley, we showed your video. Haley just joined, and we show it again at the end.
She's amazing.
So I want to just be clear. You can text photo to 215-543-6454. There's two
Please
spots
apply. Please apply. It's
going.
important.
And even if you're not going to be able to make this specific one, you still apply. You talk to Todd. We'll do more of these. So this morning on the way out, I took this picture of Tilly in her crate. Do you feel trapped by dental insurance? One of the points of these webinar series is not just to talk about being fee for service. It's also our journeys through dental insurance, which really is mine. We have a close friend, Joe Latinelli, who Todd knows, who encouraged me to pay attention sooner. I had a dad who took insurance plans and said, these are your teachers, these are the people in our town, and I wish I paid attention to numbers earlier. I want to share, I don't know if Todd probably knows this, but before we went totally out of network, we hired someone to negotiate our insurance fees, and it was pretty much one of the best things we've ever done. I'd only rather if they took calories out of my favorite food, that would be the only thing better. So if you want to learn how to decrease stress with the PPOs you're taking, text PPO to 215-543-6454. And I was talking about Todd with this yesterday. I want to start off with this. We have some questions that have been submitted by you, but if you are here and took the time to be here live, please put any questions in the chat about how Todd runs his fee for service office. Did patients cry when we went out of network? Kind of. Did people yell when we went out of network? Definitely. But when is dental insurance a win-win? I kind of ask you this, Todd. Like, dental insurance is sometimes painted as evil. Doesn't have to be evil, right? But it also can't be just accepted without paying attention to the adjustments. And right now we're out of network, but I went to my offices yesterday and looked at some EOBs. And when the patient pays some and insurance pays some, the practice gets their full fee. And it's ideally how dental insurance should work. Patient pays some, insurance pays some, like the coupon that I have talked about. And I'm not suggesting you drop all your plans or sign up for plans, but make a plan about your plan. And here are some EOBs from my office. And if you look at them, Todd, some insurance is paid about 60%, some paid 75%, some paid 60%, but the patients all paid the difference up to our listed fee. And I just want to paint two pictures. Our practice, we don't always require the full fee up front. Your practice does. How does insurance work in your practice, Todd? How do you treat it? How does your team talk about it? What do patients say?
Yeah, first and foremost, we don't let it delegate care, right? So that's a big talking point with people when they come to the practice. I use the coupon analogy all the time. I think it really resonates with patients. But long story short, we always joke with patients, like, you pay me like you pay when you check out at Target, right? You buy goods and you pay for it, right? And then your insurance is a coupon to get some money back for the services that you had. I think a big part of what I want to teach, and a big part of what's been successful for us in our organic growth over the past 14 years is just being honest, treating people well, like having them have an experience that you'd want to have. It's tough, I think, because people start out in a situation where they're in insurance driven or they're in a certain situation and they get handcuffed into it. And I just want people to understand that insurance doesn't have to be the great common denominator amongst all dental offices, right? You don't need it to be what leads your decision-making process. And, unfortunately in dental school, we're trained to the minimal amount to get out so we can start working because there's so much to learn. And that's why, my journey and the work that I've done to try and better myself has helped my practice grow, because if you want to try and do a little less insurance-driven dentistry, you have to have a certain skill set and attitude to the patients that come across your practice. So, we use the insurance for patients. We tell them we're happy to submit it. We do all the legwork. That's a part of being a fee-for-service practice, is providing service. We lead with service. I tell my team that every day. And so, they use it like a coupon.
And I also
they get reimbursed directly.
I want to interject that there's a lot of yiking, to use a term our relatives probably have used about the insurance maximums not going up. But one of the things that Travis Campbell has taught me and other people is so few people ever use the maximum that the insurance companies have no desire to bring up. Now, but I'll share that a $1,500 maximum, medium-sized cases, insurance doesn't play a big role, right? It's just you're
Almost
doing a
none.
$7,000, $8,000, $9,000 case. So I tell patients, feel lucky you have this mini coupon. Some people don't have it. And if you just reframe
I always say to patients, insurance is the wheelhouse of insurance is if you have a healthy mouth and you need like maintenance stuff over the years, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not for people who need reconstructive work. It's not for people who need no work at all. I always tell them you don't need insurance. If you have no cavities, no history, you come in twice a year, what do you need dental insurance for, right? So I think it really depends. I mean, we have people ask about it all the time for us. We still submit it. We just don't let it delegate sort of the way we approach people as much as we can avoid it.
I like that. I want to share, if you've missed this is Rocky 2 for Todd and I, or a Rocky 2 version. Next one, Mr. T is going to show up next month on Rocky 3.
I pity the
but
fool.
If you want to watch a past one, just text Todd to 215-543-6454 to reinforce everybody in your office, whether you're as fee for service as Todd or take 47 spoiled guac PPOs, must be able to answer the insurance questions in your practice. I put together a 7-minute video, which has been called Office Manager Gold by some people out there on the internet, Todd. So if people would like
Can I just say one thing before you play this?
I'm not going to play it this time. I'm just going to share it.
I want everyone to know that my team just last week sent out a blast to my patient base, still telling them, hey, you have unused insurance benefits. We don't even take insurance, but we're still telling them that, because if they've been sitting on a crown, if they've been sitting on a restoration, it's coming toward the end of the year, and it is use it or lose it. And so if we're going to use it as a coupon, if you want to get some money back for the work that you're going to have done, because you're probably going to stay in my practice and you're probably not going to leave it, because I will tell everyone listening that there's a huge psychological component for people to leave a dental practice. And if you have an established relationship with one of your patients, if you've really worked hard at it, the likelihood of them leaving over an insurance benefit, in my opinion, is probably small, unless that's truly what drives them. And if that's truly what drives them, and they weren't there for you anyway. And that is frustrating, right? And in my opinion, when I took over my practice, which was already fee for service, and I'm very honest about that, but I've grown it almost double the size in 14 years. I think it's because the people value me there, right? The patients value me there. And that's come through continuing education, through verbal skills that we've learned with each other. I mean, incredible amounts of effort and time. But if you want to get reimbursed to the skill set that you think you truly have, and it really becomes a mindset in your head, there's nothing wrong with taking insurance. We're not saying that. And quite honestly, I used to work for 5 years in insurance-driven practices, and I was very happy. And I earned a very good living. And I can almost guarantee the people who own those practices probably make more money than I do, quite honestly. But it's not about the money. It's about the type of dentistry you want to be doing. It's not for everyone. This is not a one-size-fits-all. But if you feel like you have more to offer and you want to do cases at a higher level, then you have to get away from the insurance-driven dollars, because if you're participating, you cannot afford to do those cases for your patients who want them. So there's a disconnect there between the dentistry that you want to do and the dentistry that your patients actually want, that they see on Instagram, that they want from other people, but they don't realize that their insurance is not going to help them pay for it. You have to take time to educate
And the best
them.
words to use, I'm using from Nacho's, Todd, is, I've used is that insurance creates restrictions. And if you become an unrestricted dentist, you can just share that with your patients that these restrictions for doing large cases in network aren't doable. I played this video last time, but people can text words to 215-543-6454. Get it, share it with your team, train on it. So now we're going to go with some new questions. So these are just questions Todd and I are going to answer, mainly Todd. So in your experience, Todd, you join study clubs, you lecture, you do things, do fee-for-service dentists see fewer patients than ones who are in contract with insurance companies, even if these answers seem fairly obvious to us. Some of we have dental students, we have new dentists. So talk to me about that. What are your thoughts on that?
I think in general, I'd say the answer is yes. I think that just because we don't have to be on this, hamster wheel of production churning to cover our baseline. If you run the numbers on it on insurance-driven hygiene, I don't know how anyone. I mean, it's just a loss leader for people now. Which is very challenging, and it's unfortunate because it's such a vital part of our patients' health. But I would say overall, yes. I mean, I run a robust practice. I have 3 hygiene running. I'm a 4-day practice, 3 hygiene running every day, 2 columns of patients. Of restorative patients. I mean, I think you can build it any way you want to based on the effort that you put in. I would say in general, yes, less than insurance driven just because of the numbers game. But I will tell you, there's plenty of fee-for-service practices that are big.
As someone who's done both, right? I've done both. It's the hygiene part that's very difficult because you need to see more hygiene patients, which is more hygiene checks. So we have some great dental students here that I know well. One you know from Boost, one from Penn. Just talk to these students.
Thanks for being here.
How challenging is it to check multiple hygienists and do your work? Whether you've been a dentist for 2 years, 20 years, taken every level of course, talk to them about those challenges.
Yeah, so it's really challenging, especially when the patients want to have a relationship with you, right? When they really want to be engrossed in you. And because they're paying out of pocket, they feel that they have the right, quite honestly, to your time, which in theory they do, right? And so, the big transition for me was back in 2018 when I started doing COIS and realized that if I wanted to do the cases that I've been trained to manage, I can't get up for 30 minutes at a time to check 3 hygiene. And that's conservatively in the middle of prepping, even a 6 to 8 unit case. Your patients are paying a premium fee and you're trying to get the work done and you have to get up every hour for half of that time of that hour and go do hygiene checks. It was incredibly frustrating. It was a handcuffing to my progression. And so I listened to a very good friend of mine who I trusted and knew well, and he told me to get an associate. And next thing you know, I got an associate. And that associate, I told her on the phone when I met her, Dr. Baljeet Kara, who I absolutely adore, that I didn't have business for her. But if she wanted to be in an environment where she could learn and I could teach her and she could help me and it would be fruitful for us over time, and she had vision, thankfully she had vision, this was the right fit. And quite honestly, it was. But you can't sustain a fee-for-service practice and or insurance-driven, in my opinion. I don't know how they do it while seeing hygiene. You have to have other doctors helping you if you want them to have the patients to have a positive experience, if you want your hygienist to run on time, if you want the practice to work efficiently.
Todd, I saw something in Todd. He didn't see himself. That's what I like about it. He was going to lecture and do things, but I said you need an associate. Todd's like, I'm not so sure. I'm like, you 100% need one. And let's just go through the F's of what Dentist Job Connect does. Has hiring an associate unlocked more schedule freedom for you? Freedom in your schedule in the office?
Totally, of course.
Has it unlocked more free time with your family, whether it's vacations or the ability to?
100%. Anyone who knows me well, I'm regimented when it comes to my time off. Absolutely.
Has it fueled growth of your practice? Are you placing implants now? It's only fueled growth? Yes, right?
No question. Or all organically, 100%.
And the joke with my last one, because I'm a jokester, is it unlocks fewer hygiene checks where everyone thinks, oh, it's not, nice not to run around, but it also, that unlocks a whole new world, you said, because your associate dentist can be doing those checks, developing relationships while you're working on your harder cases. So,
I mean, listen, today was a very good example. Like you and I were talking about before we started the webinar. Today was a tough day. I'm still a general dentist doing, chairside stuff all day long. And I had a tough day. And thankfully, my associate was there. But every morning in our huddle, we have a select group of patients who are what we call TAF only, meaning they will not see my associate. And, it's one of these barriers that we continue to try and work through. Now, listen, if I was really head down prepping a major case or in the middle of something, I just wouldn't get up and the patient would have to deal with it or come back another time, which is what we offer them. Come back again then. If you want to come back versus seeing an associate that I've trusted, that's up to you. If you
What
want
do
to
most
come
people
back,
do? What do most people do in those scenarios? Do some stay and let your associate do the exam and others?
yes. So my hygienists are really good about being like, listen, Dr. Fleischman wants to see you. We have it recorded that it's TAF only. But at the end of the day, he's head down. And if you were in his chair, he would be giving you the same attention. He has another doctor here for you that he's picked personally. I would really encourage you to meet them. So if Todd's never around and you need something from the practice, you're already familiar with them and you can help them. Why don't you just listen and let them introduce themselves? And that would be, I know Todd would really appreciate that. Some will go, absolutely. Others go, you know what? I came here for Todd. I like Todd. I'll come back. And you go, okay, because the hygienist at that point has to say to them, listen, I'm sorry, but if you need to wait for Todd, he can't come in. So you have to come back. And they can either huff and puff, which happens. They can come back. They can leave the practice. Because quite honestly, listen, I'm in a different stage in my career, 20 years in. Whether they come back another time or leave the practice, either way, they're not going to see me. So if they leave the practice, they're not going to see me.
Right.
If they come back another time. So it doesn't make any sense what people threaten you with, right? Like, oh, if he doesn't come in, I'm going to leave. Well, you're not going to see me if you leave the practice. So I don't, there's a disconnect there, right? So you have to just take time to retrain patients. The patients who were TAF onlys 3 or 4 years ago, a big percentage of them are not anymore. Right. And so it just, sometimes you have to really lead a horse to water. Sometimes to be very patient in your approach with your own patients, because you don't want to freak them out. You don't want them to feel like you're not there for them. But at the same time, if that patient is rational and recognizes growth and recognizes change and recognizes business, they're going to understand when they walk into my practice that things feel busier now. I'm not as available as I used to be. But if they really need me, I'm there. It just might not be at that very second. I always tell patients, if you need me, call me and I will make it happen. But if you want me to jump for you to jump and me to say how high, that's very challenging.
And it's also just, you have to be able to navigate uncomfortable conversations. When we dropped our biggest plan, we did navigate those conversations. I want to share, I did share in the chat for people who came in late. There's a $2,000 giveaway to Cavo, Todd's favorite handpiece from our sponsor. If you text the handpiece to 215-543-6454, you can get entered into that giveaway. And I also want to share for now, as more people are here, please, even though we've gotten so many questions submitted, you guys are here. So if a question strikes you, you have Todd, you have me, please ask. But let's talk. All right, if your goal is to grow from a 3 ops to 6 ops in a startup practice, would you recommend growing as a PPO office and later dropping insurance, or dropping insurance first and growing as a fee-for-service practice? So I'll let you start, Todd. I have some thoughts here because it's part of my world, but tell me some of your thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, it really depends. I mean, I think if you're willing to have real growing pains, there's something to be said about starting out fee for service. And when that patient crosses the threshold, you got to step up the game, right? And every patient really counts. My gut reaction would be, if you're really doing a startup, depending on where you are, to participate with some insurance plans and negotiate fees and do all those things that you teach people to try and get the most out of them, I think probably makes the most sense. And then as you establish relations with your patients, I mean, listen, I'm not saying this has a little edge to it, but the reality of it is your job is to ingratiate yourself with your patients, to build that trust, to show them your skill set. And if you want to take insurance to start and discount your skill set, depending on what it is, that's a personal preference. But then understanding that if your goal is to become fee for service from PPO to fee for service, you should know in your head ahead of time, way ahead of time, that you will be switching, and that you should be approaching your patients, understand that you will be switching over time. And things that you implement in the office, systems that you put in, staff members that you hire, people who answer your phones, they all have to provide a service level experience. That's the only way you get people to value and get them to stay and get them to think twice before leaving, right? You build such extraordinary relationships between your team members and your patients that they don't want to go somewhere else, because I always joke with patients, if you got to go somewhere, you might as well come to mine, right? So it should be the same for everybody on this call, right? If you got to go somewhere to these patients, you might as well come to me. Well, what is it about you that makes these patients want to come to you, right? Is it a big personality like me? Is it the service you're providing? Is it your high level of skill set? Is it your relationships? Is it something you have in common with them? Find something. That's what I teach at the new patient experience, right? It's like, where do you find the common denominator? How do you blow them out of the water during their first experience that they literally say to you as you sit them up, I have never had an exam like that. When people say that, they do not go anywhere else because they've been there already and they haven't had that experience. I'm not saying it doesn't exist in PPO, but quite honestly, because Travis and I have had these banters back and forth, right? He had his backup because I once said at a lecture, like, oh, I try a little harder, or I care a little bit more. And that was a fallacy on my part because it's not true, right? It's not true. And Travis, he gave me a what for that because he does try real hard and he cares a ton. But the reality of it is that if you want to be fee for service, you have to present yourself in a different light in some way,
And
typically.
I'm just going to add to this a couple things is the thing to develop relationships that you need is time. So we have boost campers on here, and there was 30 to 40 boost campers, and I did a pre-boost call with every boost camper and sat with them on Zoom and said, what do you want to get out of Super Dentist Boost? I want to make sure when you're here that you get what you want of it. And then I did a call afterwards to make sure they got it. And I couldn't have done that with 120 boost campers. I can only do it with 30 to 40 boost campers. The thing I will share as someone who's gone from PPO to out of network is that Todd mentioned it. If you charge $100 for a service in your office and you take an insurance that reimburses you $53, you're going to confuse your team. You're going to get stressed and you're going to resent that relationship. So look for insurance plans that make sense to your business model, not just your feelings. Because I have seen patients that came at a cost to our practice because we never looked at that. So what Todd said was, you likely will have to participate with PPOs to start growing, but make sure you're doing it in a smart way, not just I want a new patient way, because it's very easy to see patients at a cost to the practice if the adjustment between your listed fee and the PPO fee is too great. And to be honest, that percentage is probably a lot smaller than what we think. It probably is the 20 to 25% range. And some of you listening are taking insurances that you write off 50% of your fee, just like I did back in the day. So that would be my caution to you there. And please, anyone in the chat, continue to ask questions. So we talked about the best way to increase your PPO fees is really get professional help. It's complicated. It's challenging. Don't try to do it by yourself. We have multiple Nacho sponsors that help. Just text PPO to 215-543-6454. From 100% PPO to a totally fee-for-service office, I don't know what you think, Todd, but I feel like that could be actually impossible because 100% PPO office is thriving on PPOs in their own way. When we were doing this, we were probably like a 70% in-network office, 30% out-of-network office. So I don't know what you think, Todd, but I think it would be hard to go from all PPOs to fee-for-service, but feel free to challenge, disagree, or add in what you think.
I agree. I mean, I think the takeaway from going PPO to fee for service, especially 100%, which no one's ever 100%. There's always going to be cash patients, right? Not everyone has dental insurance. That's impossible, right? And you should not be marketing to just people with dental insurance. I mean, you should be marketing to people, right? And then if they have insurance, great. If they don't, great. It shouldn't drive your marketing, in my opinion. The big thing to take away, in my opinion, is that if you're going to be 100% PPO and you have 1,000 patients and you have 10 team members, if you choose to rip the Band-Aid off and go fee for service, hypothetically, be prepared that you can't now support 10 team members and you're not going to have 1,000 patients anymore, right? Like when you make that change, something's going to probably have to give. That's the big thing, right? It doesn't mean you can't make the change, because if you go from running around like a chicken with your head cut off to make a certain amount of money a year that you feel comfortable with, and you recognize that now you've got patients who appreciate you more, they're interested in higher level care, you're doing more work out of your practice that isn't insurance driven, multiple units, comprehensive care, quadrant dentistry, whatever it might be. Well, then at some point when you make the transition, yes, you will have people who are only driven by dollars. That is going to be a thing. It's human nature. There's always going to be black and white. But the reality of it is you have to be prepared as a business owner, as a business person, to say, okay, when I make this transition, which of my team members am I willing to lose because I won't be able to afford them anymore necessarily? How many days less or more am I going to have to work on my own by myself with it? Who knows, right? But you have to be flexible during that transition. It's very fluid from what I know. I mean, it was fluid for me in a transition that was already fee for service, but a transition from a very experienced 60-year-old doctor. And the next day he was gone and it was me. And I had only met 35 to 40% of the practice base at that point. And so thankfully, people who, when they're already in an established practice, it takes a lot for them to leave, right? They're comfortable. Dentistry is weird. Going for a
Yeah.
cleaning is weird. It's very personable. It can be uncomfortable. And so it takes a lot for people to leave a practice. But for most people, for some people, it will just be dollars driven. For others, they'll go, you know what? Paul, Todd, Alex, Haley, you're worth it, right? You're worth it. But it's our jobs to determine that. Not everyone has the mental capacity, energy, stamina, personality to keep up with that fee-for-service nature and build that with their patients. If you don't want to talk to your patients, if you don't want to establish relationships, if you just want to be a mouth monkey and see a hole and fill it, then you should probably be insurance driven, right? But if you want more from the profession, if you realize that over a probable 40-year career, that maybe it's not just about drilling, filling, and billing, and maybe it can be deeper where we actually get people healthy, where we actually can have a very moderate impact on their lives, then I think a fee-for-service journey is something that people should consider, because I have tons of people, friends, colleagues on this Zoom who have incredible personalities who could absolutely make a go of it. It's just going to take a risk. It's just going to take fluidity, and it may take a sacrifice of patience for certain, but certainly staff.
I love that. I want to add two things here, Todd, a couple of things, because I think I want to shift gears. Someone said here, Super Dentist Boost Camp, the pre and post calls were in, made me feel like it cared about what I was hoping to gain from it. No other seed does that. And what I can extrapolate to this is Andy Halbert is a high-level dentist in the Philadelphia area, and I used to shadow him, and he would spend an hour with the patient when they came in. At the end of the day, it was brilliant. 4 o'clock consult, his team's cleaning up. He sat there, no bib on the patient, across from them, and heard their story for an hour. And I learned from that because he said you create a fan for life. You later in the relationship, they will forgive you if you're running late. And I do these things with authenticity for Super Dentist Boost because I want to create the relationship, but you never get that second chance to create a first impression, to get people on your side, just like one of our awesome boost campers talked about. You do this with patients. I think it's worth sharing your new patient experience. Tell the group what it's like. You know, people come in and it's not like you come in for 5 minutes and check their teeth and say you look great. Just walk people through your new patient experience.
And by the way, like I laugh because like I didn't invent this, you know what I mean? Like I've learned how to manage this experience through all the courses I took at Spears, all the courses I took at Coist, through all the things I've done over the years. But ultimately, it's just giving patients specific time they've never had before with dentists. When they come in, they sit with me first, and knee to knee, no bib, upright, in the chair. I introduce myself, and I literally, the first question I ask them is, tell me about yourself. Where are you from? What do you do? Like, and I do it like, you know, just like this, you know, where are you from? What do you do? Give me some background, right? I'm interested in you. I want to know who you are. And they, I think, really appreciate that. It can be a very impersonal thing, dentistry, despite the personal aspect of it, which is so invasive. You know, I've had patients tell me that it can bring back childhood trauma that they had because of people being on top of them or very overwhelmed or whatever it may be. So we have to be very careful in our approaches with people. And in my opinion, this is the practice I've built for myself. The people who come to me oftentimes need a little more hand-holding, right? That's why they come to us, right? They need a little more hand-holding. They need a little more time. They don't want to be in a revolving door scenario. It doesn't mean it doesn't work and it's not a good model. It's just not the right model for that patient. So I'm specifically, and I'm not marketing, but I'm specifically trying to involve patients who want this type of experience. And what's happened over 15 years now is that it buzzes around town, it buzzes around your community, it buzzes around your kids' schools, that if you want your dental experience to fit or hit differently, you should see Todd, or you should see Haley, or you should see Alex, or you should see Paul, because that's the reputation builder. And then never letting a patient leave your practice without feeling satisfied, right? But we have a whole system of this new patient experience through transitioning into a hygiene appointment that really makes people feel that we're paying attention. And literally almost daily, they sit up in the chair and go, I mean, literally I hand them disposable sunglasses, and they go, I've never seen anything like
Yeah.
this before.
Small
And I go,
things,
this
big
is a
impact.
65-cent
Yeah.
disposable sunglass that we don't want wiped. Listen, I know we have a lot of disposables in what we do. It is what it is. But I mean, the impact of some of these minutia type things, just because we're being thoughtful about the patient's experience, is extraordinary.
I like that. Someone also shared something, and it was a good point. They said that we're moving towards a time where medical debt might not be reflected on people's credit reports. So collecting fees earlier makes a lot of sense. How do you collect these fees? So it sounds great, Todd. You say people pay ahead of time, people pay us, but they might not be used to that from another dentist. They might not be used to that from anyone. So
They're
what
not. Yeah.
conversations are just walk me through. I come to your office. I need a crown on number 18. One day I'm going to need a crown on 18. So Jeff doesn't want to see me. Maybe I'll come to you. So, a patient comes in, they need a crown on 18 or benefit from a crown on 18, hard hat for your tooth, like you say.
Right.
What's your financial conversation about that?
I mean, it's just basic now. Like, I'm just totally different in my career, so it's obviously different, but I'm very candid about my fees. I'm not afraid to talk fees with patients. I think that's something that we all have to be able to do. They're going to want to know how much things cost. It's just human nature. I will tell you that my front office admin team is unbelievable, right? We've been incredibly trained. We work very hard at it. I've hired people with extraordinary personalities, not easy to find, but when you do, I have a new patient coordinator. This is someone, Valerie, in my practice, who just handles new patient phone calls, right? I mean, she does other things too, but she's the one who handles new patient phone calls. And she has a script that she talks to patients about on the phone. And I had a patient literally this week be like, boy, getting into the practice is hard. I go, yeah, we're just really transparent about our expectations with patients. And we really want to set that standard right away, that we're detailed in our approach. And if we're not the right fit, I really respect that.
Yeah.
But I want patients to know from the very first phone conversation that it's going to feel different when you're here, right? And you're going to pay me differently than you're accustomed to. And Valerie does go through that with patients. But at the end of the day, like if I have a new patient at the end of my day, let's say at 3:00, my team will actually collect in fact, stop on a reverse for a quick second. For all new patients, Valerie or anyone else who's up at the front desk collects their payment as soon as they walk in the door. As soon as they walk in the door. So right away, the psychology of that is we're training them that you are going to pay us when either you walk in or before you leave. At no point are you not paying us, right? We have a skill set. You like this environment. I always joke with patients, you love my team. You tell me how much you love my team. And then you come back and you tell me how expensive I am, which is not true, by the way. But you come back and tell me, I go, well, do you think that team is an inexpensive team? You pay for what you get in that experience. Now, you have to back it up. You can't tell people you're fee for service and give them a PPO experience. No, I don't want Travis to get upset with me. I'm not saying a PPO experience is a bad one, but it just has to be different, in my opinion. It has to be
Travis
more.
maybe we'll bring him on one of the ones for fun time. He admits that he likes a Chipotle style of dentistry. He said, I'd prefer to see more patients. And PPO, this is great for this question. I think a lot of PPO dentists think fee-for-service dentists are annoying and high maintenance, and Travis doesn't want to see them, which I don't think is true. So we all can learn from each other, because this question I'll answer first is, are the patient population at PPO office different than the fee-for-service office? Yes. Not in age, not in income, not in what they've done in life. Yeah, their mindset. The mindset's different. I got people.
That goes for dentists too. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Paul. It goes for dentists too.
That's okay.
You can have, I have so many friends from Coyce and Spear that have these teeny little boutique-y practices that are absolutely fabulous. They work 3 days a week. Maybe it's their spouses also have great jobs. So it really depends on the scenario. But you can have like a small fee-for-service practice where you see a couple patients a day and make a great living. There's plenty of ways to skin a cat here, right? And just because you're fee-for-service doesn't mean you can't take, first of all, by the way, the other thing is, just because you're fee-for-service doesn't have to be expensive. It just means you're not taking insurance, right? You can charge whatever you want to charge. If you want to charge your patients insurance fees, but collect all of it with less hassle, then go ahead. If you want to be reasonable because that's the kind of person you are and you don't want to outprice other folks around you, then go ahead. Doesn't mean that you have to be an expensive dentist when you're fee for service. It just means you don't want to deal with the insurance and you don't want to be handcuffed to what insurance delegates.
People should, I know Todd is our star, but people should ask me more questions because I went from one to the other. I tell
You
Kate,
definitely have more experience.
Todd knows Kate, my office manager, well, and I say to her frequently, because I never miss a chance to say I was right, Todd, with your associate. I go, Kate, how much easier is it to be out of network with insurance? She's like, my life is so much less hassle. So what you said was really smart, Todd. It's not about the total fee. You don't have to be expensive.
No.
Processing insurance in your practice is very complex. It doesn't mean don't do it. It doesn't mean drop your insurance plans or sign up for plans, but there is a whole energy, effort, and time your team spends when you have to process a lot of in-network insurance.
I just don't want students to feel that they're being handcuffed in their approach. You can practice any way you want to. But what happens is that when you come out of school and you have no money, you need to make money and you have debt, you get into a situation where you start working. I was fortunate, Paul, that I came from a background. My father was a fee-for-service periodontist, right, in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. When he moved there in 72, there were no periodontists within an hour's drive. So why in the hell's name would he take insurance? There was no need, right? He wasn't the most expensive periodontist in the world. He was in Wilkes-Barre. How expensive could you be? But he knew he didn't want to be handcuffed by insurance delegation. That's the whole point. I had the experience to know that I wanted to practice a certain way philosophically. I wanted to have relations with my patients a certain way philosophically, and I didn't want insurance to be a barrier to those relationships. That was my drive. To answer Matt's question, I do collect total fee up front. I do. I collect total fee up front, and the insurance pays the patient. That's correct. Yep. And by the way, for a checkup and a cleaning in my practice, they almost get their full fee with a lot of these insurances. So like the idea that also they're not getting reimbursed at a certain level, unless they have real dreck, which, you know, they're either not paying into or it's some like random employee benefit, they're getting a lot of money back and at least half. And then they think to themselves, I literally say to patients now, I hope you feel like I'm worth the extra $100 you spend to come here. And they go, of course, Todd, or absolutely, or maybe you aren't, but I still like coming here. You know, they joke with me. But, you know, you can't be barriered by these things. You are the one who decides how you want to practice and be patient in your approach. I don't make the same living. I didn't make the same living 15 years ago like I do now. And so you have to be patient. This is a marathon, y'all. This is a marathon.
And also, two things I want to point out. One quick note is the way the new Zoom is, I can't see the Q&A. So if you did put that question in the Q&A, just copy and paste into the chat. I see the questions in the chat. Two, just Todd, you have done COIS, you've done Spear. We'll keep talking about that, but you've also done things for your team. One time you asked me, hey, Paul, can I use your conference center? Talk to this audience about the time, the money, the energy you invest in your team. Who have you brought in? Because I just want them to understand that that's part of it. You can't be a great chef with people who can't deliver service. Can't be a great chef with people who can't seat the customer. So you work so hard on your team. Just tell your audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I really try and be a leader now too, and that's really changed over the past 15 years, first and foremost, right? I lead my team by philosophy, I lead my team by attitude, and my expectations with them is that they follow my lead. If I'm not leading strongly, then how much can I expect from them? But to answer your question specifically, you know, we do all sorts of management consultant stuff in the practice, right? Fortunately, my predecessor, Bob Kravitz, he taught me very early on, don't be cheap. We didn't work together a lot, but he told me early on, don't be cheap. What we do is expensive. What we charge patients can be expensive, and how we invest in each other is expensive. And it's run the gamut. I've had us go down to, I was interested in salesmanship, so I went down to MGE and I took the team on like 5 trips down to Clearwater to learn about how to talk to patients about dentistry, how to actually sell dentistry, how to actually educate patients about doing dentistry. I've had Paragon Management, who's based in the Midwest, come to my practice for several years. They were coming quarterly to meet with my team and have those tough conversations that I wasn't able to have earlier in my career. They came and did a private session just 3 years ago in the Nacho space. He let me use it for my team so we could get aligned. We could understand a verticality of positions in the office, to understand what responsibilities were and how to manage them better, to understand who they could go to if they have problems, if they need help, how to work together as a team, what departments look like. You know, I have 12 team members now. It's not gigantic, but it's also not small. Yeah. I was working on a dentist today who has 6. I was a little jealous. He was like, oh, any suggestions for places to eat in town for the holidays? I was like, how many do you have? He's like, 6. I was like, oh man, that must be nice. You know, they can sit around one little table and really enjoy each other, right? But what happens is if you're doing something well over time, you grow organically. And a lot of the people on this call right now will absolutely grow organically and surpass much further than anything I will ever do because they're driven differently. All you want is that opportunity to be your best self. And what I've seen from my friends and my colleagues, from my specialists and other people that I work with, all the high-end specialists I work with, they're all fee for service, obviously, right? And they have done extraordinary things. They hold themselves to incredible regard. Why do general dentists not allow themselves to feel the same way as a specialist?
Yeah.
Why is that? Why are specialists can be out of network and fee for service and no one thinks
Right.
twice because they're a specialist?
You know what's interesting? I want to
And yet
pause
at
you
the
1
same
second.
time, most patients are coming to generalists.
But
Makes
Todd,
no
I want to
sense.
pause you because you don't have this experience, but I've had this so many times, even with my amazing dad. We would take this horrible plan where people would threaten us to leave us if we didn't take it. We'd refer them to a periodontist who didn't take any insurance, and they'd happily go. And I would be very frustrated. I goes, well, you pay this guy. He goes, well, he doesn't take any insurance. There's more to that story, but what Todd is saying is so true, that we should hold ourselves in the same regard and create an energy and framework inside of our office that does that. I want to go back to
But
this
you
question.
have to
Oh, go
have the
ahead,
skill
Todd.
set. But you have to have the skill set, right? I mean, you do. You have to have the skill set. You have to have the training.
Tell
You
us
can't go in
about
fresh
that
out of
skill
school.
set. Tell us about that skill set for your operatory, your patient. You've done Coist, you've done Spear. When did you start doing it? Why did you think it's worth investing 100 grand? I think what's important is you've talked about investing. The dentist has got to invest in themselves. They get, you've spent 6 figures and time away from your family doing this. So you can't skip that part. Just give them a few minutes
Well,
about
it's
that.
just the design that I wanted to do. I didn't want to do single tooth dentistry anymore. I mean, you do this long enough. Listen, the first 5, 10 years, you're like, cool, single tooth, double tooth, quadrant stuff. You're like, all right, I got it, right? But like, I was the kind of guy who was like, I would like to push myself. I thought I had more to offer. I didn't go to a post-grad program. I did a AEGD, which was fabulous, but I didn't become a specialist. So I said to myself, listen, how do I feel well regarded amongst my community? And it was making sure that they understood that I was interested in bettering myself. And when I did these courses, I made sure to tell my local specialists and show them the keynote presentations that all of you guys have seen through my lecturing, and send them the information and communicate with them clearly and show them the photography we're doing, and have patients come to them understanding the graft they need, the ortho they need. Todd's already explained it to me. I have specialists tell me, boy, all I had to do was tell them how much it was, and they signed up right away. And I was like, yeah, because I've already educated them. I've done the uploaded work because I want patients to understand that I am part of this team also.
Yeah.
But the first 5 years of my career, you're busy calling specialists and go, what do you think?
Yeah.
And let me tell you guys something. They don't know the answers like you think they do. Some of them do, but a lot of them don't. And when you start to gain control over your own cases and understand what the outcomes are supposed to be and work with the correct people, it changes your attitude toward dentistry you're doing and makes you value yourself more.
I
And
want
it's
to share,
hard to
Todd.
value yourself more,
I
like when you're
stopped
doing
referring
single
to
tooth stuff.
I stopped referring to an oral surgeon in our town who took out all kinds of wisdom teeth because he didn't have the courtesy. One time we referred for a extraction bone graft. Patient didn't know what they were going to do next. Wasn't sure it was part of the plan. They came back with what my grandfather called, like, I'll use a nicer term, an implant on a diagonal, right? And I was so angry, I couldn't restore it. And I was like, that person didn't have the courtesy to talk to me about this case for 5 seconds and ask why we weren't asking for an immediate implant, whether it was financially driven or time driven. So your relationships with specialists as a fee for service dentist have to be elevated. I want to just pull in this
They do.
question because this person saying I'm a 1.5-year-old start with 900 patients and 95% of my patients are PPO and network. I don't want to say this dentist name, but she was my resident, and I think she would be proud for me to say it, but maybe embarrassed. Over the pandemic, she called me, Todd, and said, I have a PPO practice and I don't want to do this dentistry. I'm going to Coist. I'm doing these things. She actually sold her PPO practice and found a fee-for-service practice to buy. I want to be honest with people that if you have a fully in-network PPO practice, there's not always a magic wand to turn it into something else. So this dentist did the hard work of selling her PPO practice, investing in Coist, and
Good for
finding
her.
another practice. Because the question we have from a boost camper who's amazing says, what does marketing look like for a fee-for-service practice? You purchase one, Todd, and you and I have talked about this marketing because it's probably what people don't think is, what has been some of your best marketing over the years? What do you think about marketing now? What do you think might work? What might not work? With understanding for everyone on this call that you purchased a fee-for-service practice base.
Totally,
But you've
totally,
had a
totally,
lot of new
totally.
patients come over those years. So they're not.
And more now than ever.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple of reasons why. One, my experience level, right? Like I'm now established in my city. I'm established in my community. That takes a long time. It's a very slow burn. And so I think it's hitting more exponentially now just because of the nature of growth, right? Of the nature of how things move over time. Marketing's always been a funny thing for me. I've never really invested a lot of dollars in marketing because if you want to play that game about Google listings and stuff, in my opinion, you're never going to win. Unless you're really committed to being on the first and the top of the page, I'm not sure you're ever going to win. And then you have to have team members who understand how to answer the phone calls when new patients call and how to convert them. And being fee for service can be challenging. We get calls every day. Hey, blah, 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 we'd love to come to you, take my insurance. We're very honest. We don't play that game about like, yes,
Yeah.
we take it, despite the fact we don't participate. No, we just say no, right? But then we have a conversation about why we don't, and if you're interested and how we can make it helpful for you and how we give a big discount on a new patient experience, which we'll talk about when you come to the practice. So, marketing's never been my strong suit. As I gained the associates, I have wanted to market more to try and get uncommitted people to come to the practice who aren't coming just on a direct referral to me, because my practice really runs, we do 17 to 25 new patients a month, and they almost all come from direct referral to me, just through word of mouth. Now, there are incredible Facebook communities now that I think are really
Yeah.
valuable for patients and for offices where you don't have to invest a lot. But if you can get some existing patients to comment on Facebook groups, it's incredibly powerful. And I'm seeing a lot of influx of new patients from groups like that, where they understand that they're not going to be an insurance-driven experience, but we've already been vetted within a very sort of subset community, right? Who really trust each other on these forums. And so I would say, like, have your team members go on Facebook and start to look for local community groups
Yeah.
and think about that as a marketing tool, because it's free and it's incredibly powerful.
It's
And
also
so,
genuine, and then you have to do it just
yes,
like I teach it. Your team and you. I commented on one yesterday. I think someone in my group. I don't know if I sent it to you, Todd. Someone in my local group said, "Can someone recommend a dentist who doesn't push X-rays on everyone?"
I saw
And I
that.
and
Yeah.
I said something good. I said, "I'm a dentist. There's a lot of great dentists in this community. We're not out to push X-rays." I gave a few educational points. I did it to help, right? But I also know that people will go, that was a pretty good comment by that guy, Paul Goodman, right? I just moved into town. So if you can be authentic and educate and do those in groups. I also want to share that our practice does a lot of specialty care. We have Dr. Rob Slough, who is one of Todd's friends. And marketing to me for a fee for service practice can work when it's directed to very specific, often larger cases. So we do
Yeah.
a direct mailer, which also is now being done by someone you know, Todd, and it is an educational piece on implants, and it's been a
Mhm.
phenomenal way. But when those people come in, Rob Slough is doing these all on
You can
four
do it.
large
Yeah, you can
cases.
do that work. Exactly.
We're not utilizing it for new patient hygiene visits. So I'll just share that if
Right.
you maybe you do clear aligners, maybe you do something with dental implants. If you are a fee for service dentist who does something special and you want to do more of those cases, strategic marketing that is costly can work for that.
I mean, listen, I market as a relationship driven dentist, right? If you go to my website now, the first page is a comprehensive relationship driven dentistry, right? There are a lot of patients out there who want that experience, right? There's tons of people out there. You don't have to be a one size fits all. People will find you if you do things in a certain way, and you will find your fans. It just takes time. And when people come in and they have a good experience, by the way, I shill myself all the time. If a patient sits up in the chair after that new patient, they go, "Boy, I never had anything like that." I'm like, just so you know, we're always accepting new patients. We'd love to
Yeah.
have patients just like you in the practice. Please tell your friends and family, I'd love to take care of them just like I took care of you. And they go, okay, right? They start nodding. Just get them to start nodding. And you have to be willing to sell yourself a little bit. I'm in a business of sales, right? That's the reality. You can call it education, you can call it sales, you can call it whatever you want. But the reality of it is, if people don't, and I tell this to patients too, if I don't tell you what I offer here, how will you know? Because we don't have a menu board like Burger King
Right.
when they walk in, right?
That's a good point.
Whitening 1, whitening 2, whitening 3. So I sell all day long, but I don't have a problem with it because it's my business and I'm helping people. And so that's part of business, is learning how to talk. And when you come to me, I will teach you, along with this guy above me, how to talk, right? Because it's what you and I think, do really well. I do. I feel like we do it very well.
I'm totally with you. For the group here who's been here, really appreciate having you in the last 5 minutes. If you put one thing in the chat that you took away from the last 55 minutes, Todd's generously sharing his time with us. These
My
current
pleasure.
webinar series are free webinar series. And I wanted to add in, Todd, I tell the Nacho team, I tell the Job Connect team, I tell my dental team, if what we do helps people, do implants help, do finding associates help, do bring people to boost help, if we agreed it helps, yes, be proud to sell it. Be proud to sell
Exactly.
it. Don't be worried about it.
We're not asking people to do things inappropriately, right? We're not asking people to talk about themselves in a way that doesn't make sense, right? We're asking people to be authentic, right?
I love this
and
one.
if you do that, it will translate.
Distinguish yourself, make your practice worth patients coming. That's a dental student who came in to watch Todd, who I saw at an ASDA event. And if you want the absolute best book to listen to, in my opinion, that your team should listen to, you should listen to, you should read more than once. I bring it on every plane trip, because when the plane takes off and lands and I'm not allowed to use my phone for those 10 minutes, I read pages from it over and over. It is To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink. It will reframe everything you think about connecting with people, moving people forward. It breaks it down just like bonding teeth. Well, if you want to apply to Todd's next session, text photo to 215.
Got 2 spots left. Let's go, guys. Come on, we're gonna have a great group.
Yeah. And Todd, thank you for sharing time. We're going to do Rocky 3 in a month. So make sure if you're here tonight, you are registered for that next one. Share this with your friends. The more people we have in it, the more fun it is, becoming more fee for service. Thanks so much for being here, Todd.
Yeah, it's always my pleasure for this group. Let me know what else I can do. Feel free to reach out to me directly. You guys know how to get in touch.
And all of you who spent time here tonight, you should be proud of yourself for taking time on a Wednesday night to learn from us, to learn, laugh, and feel less alone. Have a great night, guys.
All right, y'all. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.